Hello again, welcome back, and thank you for checking out my videos. Today I am doing a tutorial video on Arcane Quest HD, as there is a big influx and interest of people who have never touched this genre before. So not only are we gaining back the popularity of tabletop board games and a pen and paper style theme fantasy to it, but now we're encouraging players outside of the genre to give it a chance. But it is very overwhelming learning all of the mechanics in games like these. These games are very hardcore and require a lot of strategy, and literally the subgenre to this game is hardcore. So let's try to make as much sense out of this as possible by going into the game's tutorial. The tutorial itself is very good at educating you on how to play the game in its basic manner, but I'm going to try to go along with it and give it a more in-depth explanation. When you go into the tutorial and you're about to start your match, you will be given a list of all the heroes available, which is 8 of them, respective classes and their pros and cons, which we will go over. In the tutorial, you are able to pick up 2 heroes. So I would use this chance to look at all the characters, just see what classes you like, and pick the class you like the most, or the class you were most interested in seeing, which is probably going to be, we'll start simple with the Barbarian. You can't go wrong with the Barbarian. And let's see here. So since we have a damage dealer, which the Barbarian is, and he's a little bit tanky, we'll call him a Bruiser. And that's just a really tanky damage dealer. We're going to have somebody to back him up. So let's see here. Let's go simple. Let's go with the Wizard. Certain classes in this game, mainly magic users, will have access to different categories of abilities. The Wizard, in this instance, is able to choose up to 3 spells. This is the perfect opportunity to explore this tutorial. I will highly recommend that you play the tutorial over and over, just so you get adjusted to the feel of the game, as well as learning the abilities to each class. Whenever you choose them, you will get a set of abilities. So, for me, I'm going to complement my warrior by choosing elements that act like support. But of course, fire's got to be one of them, so I can choose 3. Let's see here. Let's do fire, water, and air. Okay, before I go into the actual gameplay, I want to go over what you're looking at on the screen, because there's dice, there's numbers, and there's an explanation on the bottom, and there's icons. Let's make sense of it. Brogror the Barbarian has 8 HP, as you can see to the left of his name. Below his portrait, you will see 3 icons. There is attack, defense, and movement. Below those icons are the number of dice you roll. When you are attacking, you get to roll 3 dice. When you're defending, you get to roll 2 dice. When you're moving, which is at the start of your turn, you will roll 2 dice. Now, the movement dice is different from your attack and defense dice. Your movement dice will act as the traditional 6-sided die, whereas your attack and defense die will roll in 2 forms. The skull represents damage, and the shield represents defense. As you will notice, the Barbarian has 3 damage and 2 defense, as I'll say it like that, and the Wizard only has 1 damage, but 2 defense, so it's a pretty mediocre defense. Later in the game, you will get equipment that will give you more dice rolls, and I'll just call them points of damage and points of defense respectively. So this will sort of get confusing because there's no high number stats, there's no critical, there's not a whole bunch of different stats that you use. So it's going to be confusing. So on that note, I am going to go into the tutorial, and I'll just give you a first-hand look at how the combat system works in this game. We're going to start off with the movement. So as you can see there, the movement die rolls twice, and the number that you roll is how far you can move. And the biggest tip I can give you for beginners is to always search before you move if there are no enemies to engage with. The second rule is to always move your tankiest person into the next room. And of course, the goal to each of these missions for the adventures is to get to the staircase. Volume disappeared somehow. There we go. So the movement part is pretty easy. Just always remember to search. Use that magnifying glass in the very bottom right of your screen to always search, and the traps in this game will mess you up. Like one right down there. So if you see a trap, all you need to do while you still have an action is just double click on it and you will get a roll chance to see if you disarm it. So in this room, I am almost positive there's traps, so I'm actually going to wait until I can search. Oops, did not mean to do that. Well, since I did that, I'm going to go ahead and do that. And again, once you use that magnifying glass, that does count as an action, so you won't be able to do anything else after you do that. The same thing with disarming a single trap. But you will be able to open chests and pick up items, as they don't count as actual actions. So after I use that action, I'll still be able to open up drawers and open up chests and whatnot. And as you can see, when I was searching, I found an item on the ground. All you have to do is just go over it, and it'll immediately go into your inventory, and you can open that up to look at all of your items, and you can only hold 4 at maximum. Once again, please always search every room before you navigate through. It is very important. And it looks like we're going to be going on to the fighting tutorial. Again, you always want to use your tankiest person to enter rooms, because you will be the first person being targeted. So now I am going to position myself right here, and I'll show you why. After you attack an enemy, you will be able to open a chest, because it doesn't take an action. Since she used her magnifying glass, she will not be able to take another action, so I'm going to move her close, but not in complete range, which he will automatically go for her as well. When you attack, you will have to keep in mind the amount of dice that you can roll while you attack, which is 3 for the barbarian. Now, if you click on the enemy on the upper right, you will be able to see their stats. They will have 2 rolls for their attack and 1 roll for their defense. And the Goblin Warriors have 10 movement speed at all time. So using my barbarian, out of the 3 rolls, I only had 1 skull. And they did not roll a shield, so I did 1 damage. Hallways are just as worthy of a place to search. And that is what happens when you don't search before you move. Because not only do you hit the trap, but you won't be able to use the magnifying glass again. And although you do search using the magnifying glass, you will not be able to disarm the traps. Okay, since I use an action, I don't want her to be engaged by the enemy, so I'm going to move her back. So I had 2 defense there, and he has 2 attack, so I just have bad luck if he's able to hit me. Use my wizard's range to attack him. See, I rolled a shield, and if you roll a shield, obviously you won't do any damage. But because your dice work like that, there's a skull, a shield, and the black colors on the same die. So it's a gamble each time. So that covers the basics for combats and the dice roll mechanic. On the traps, you either get a fail or a success, or you don't get any. If you don't get anything on your dice roll, then nothing happens. If you roll the fail, though, you'll take damage, but you will still be able to disarm it. You'll just get hits. Alright, so that is the basic tutorial for the game, and I'll leave you off with just a couple words of advice again. I would use this opportunity to go through the tutorial a bunch of times to use different characters and try out their abilities, do some research on them, get a better feel for the role mechanic, and try to practice searching before you move around. And it's going to be hard to remember that one, so that's why I always try to say it after every move or before every move to search. And on the next video, I am going to show you guys like an actual adventure, and we'll get more into the blacksmith and the use of gold that we have accrued through this tutorial. So stay tuned for the next tutorial episode, and thank you all for watching and viewing. Please remember to give me a like and leave a comment if you enjoyed these videos and if they were helpful, and leave a comment for feedback, and I'll see you next video. Thank you.